Injury, however, the other driver is hospitalized now in serious condition.
Well, now it's rush hour. I'm sure some folks at home are concerned about people getting back to their homes. Let's check in with Dave Dahl.
He joins us live from the Pillam Bridge in St. Paul. Dave?
Yeah, there are no problems. As a matter of fact, I think people are trying to make up for lost time this morning. They're traveling.
The driver of a truck carrying concrete apparently couldn't stop, slammed into the back of this car. The car burst into flames and the driver was trapped. Thankfully, some very alert people wrapped a chain around the car's door and yanked it open. The driver is hospitalized in serious condition. Could have been a lot worse if they had not.
Terrific, quick thinking on their part.
Really was.
Yeah.
It wasn't just tornadoes, it was avalanches out west. We got some video of that when we come back on this.
This accident doesn't look like it could possibly be the scene of a happy ending. A smoldering car crushed under a semi-truck, the driver trapped inside. When the fire was out, all that was left was a car that was so crumpled and burned that we could barely tell what it was, and a story of true heroics.
Trying to get the driver out, they certainly put their life on the line, too, and it was very heroic on their part.
God gave me courage to do what I had to do.
Jerry Gurley and several other witnesses beat police to the scene. They were the driver's only hope.
One of the guys got a chain, and we hooked it up to the front of my bumper here, and then another fire shot out over us. And when I backed up, it bent the frame enough, and then we just kept pitching snow on the gas tank so it wouldn't ignite. And we drugged the young man to safety. How you doing?
At David Nelson's bedside, you see what was really at stake this morning. Not just a young man, but a young family.
I think they're real heroes. They're heroes in our midst. So I just can't thank them enough.
On my way home, I was thinking to myself that I did a really nice thing. So I'm going to call my mom back home, tell her that she can be proud of me now.
Proud of the part he played in a story that could have so easily had a different ending. With Julie Kramer, I'm Trish Van Pilsum for WCCO Television News.
I'd like to take a second here to tell you a little bit more about the rescuer, Jerry Gurley. He says the accident has given his life some new meaning. He's from Chicago. He came to Minnesota for drug, but he was also instrumental in the rescue.
Well, moments ago, a federal judge made a ruling that could...
It is quality that works. The FDA approves this remedy. You might expect it to become one of those expensive prescription drugs, but McLaughlin says he'd like to see it sold over the counter.
Now, this next story is the kind we love to report. A young father is alive tonight thanks to the efforts of some brave men who pulled him from a burning car. That car had collided with a semi-truck near Hastings during rush hour this morning. The driver was trapped inside, but several witnesses hooked a chain to the car door and pulled it open with a pickup truck. Jerry Gurley says he only thought of his own safety once.
Only one time when I was down by the gas tank and like the carburetor caught on fire and flames shot up over both of us. And we're like, wow, we really got to get this guy out.
David Nelson is the man they saved, and at his bedside you can see what was really at stake this morning, the future of a young family.
I think they're real heroes. They're heroes in our midst. So I just can't thank them enough.
Rescuer Jerry Gurley doesn't call himself a hero. He just says, and we are quoting here, he did a nice thing today.
Sure did. Jerry's from Chicago, and he came here for drug rehabilitation treatment. And he said he's going to call his mom today and tell her what he did. Said maybe she'll be proud of him now.
Oh, we're all proud of him.
No, that's true. Now here's a look at what's still ahead of him.
Finds Normie's wife a new job. Tonight, Dimension finds hope in the near-tragic story of a car accident one icy February morning. A heroic rescue turned it from tragedy to triumph, not just for the driver, but for a young hero struggling to save his own life.
You may recall the story last February that first thrust a young man named Jerry Gurley into the public eye.
Gurley was one of several people who saw a car collide with a semi-truck on two-lane highway near Hastings. 6 Good Samaritans each helped in some way to rescue the driver from the fiery crash. We focus tonight on rescuer Jerry Gurley. Not because his role in the rescue was any more heroic than the others, but because of the tremendous courage and hope that brought him to that highway on that February morning.
Trish Van Pilsen has tonight's Dimension that will make you stop and think there is still a lot of good in this world.
When he was young, his mom called him an angel.
Really good personality. Everybody liked him.
When he was grown, he would be called a guardian angel by a young Minnesota family who should know.
Oh, yeah. He gave me a second chance on life.
I feel extremely lucky that my son is going to have a father for as long as possible.
But between those times, Jerry Gurley would experience near crippling lows.
When I started using drugs, you know, that became my mother, my lover, my dad, became everything.
Jerry Gurley grew up in a small town just outside of Chicago. It was his father he most looked up to, and his dad had big plans for him. By the time Jerry was 6, his dad had proudly included him in the logo of the family business and talked of Jerry learning a trade.
I would always say you did good. His dad would always say you could do better.
By high school, the boy who once dreamed of being a football star followed the crowd he was hanging with and began using drugs. A few years later, his dream of being a Marine ended after a serious asthma attack, and he was using even more cocaine. He began working the trades, first on his own, then after he got laid off, with his dad some. Only his dad knew just how bad the drug problem had gotten.
He really had me fooled. Yeah, I was completely fooled.
Then, Jerry Gurley hit the lowest point of all.
It was Friday, and this thing really haunts
He was
me.
supposed to work Saturday morning with his dad, but he'd been out all Friday night
I
using.
came home, and I stole money from my dad. And the next day I was supposed to work with him. Well, he knew I was out all night, and I heard him looking for his wallet and everything. He opens the door, and you know, I think he knew I might have taken it.
Jerry was too hungover to go to work with his dad that morning. His dad died at work that day.
Best thing that I remember about my dad is stealing from him. That was the last thing.
It was a long, halting path back from that point, a path that took him through several unsuccessful treatment programs and eventually led to Minnesota, to the Hazelton Treatment Program, to a halfway house in Hastings, to an icy highway just outside of town. And on that highway, Jerry Gurley found a purpose.
I spun around, and I remember a flash of the spinning, and I looked over my shoulder out the back window just in time to see the grill of the truck and think, oh no.
One of the guys got a chain.
This is Jerry Gurley just hours later, describing on the 6 o'clock news the way he and several other motorists pulled David Nelson from his burning car.
Kept pitching snow on the gas tank so it wouldn't ignite.
At the same time, David Nelson, with his wife and little boy at his side, pretty much summed things up.
They're real heroes. Heroes in our midst.
And then Jerry Gurley said something that made us want to know more about him.
On my way home, I was thinking to myself that I did a really nice thing. So I'm going to call my mom back home, tell her that she can be proud of me now. Yeah. Yeah, she's very important to me, you know.
2 weeks after the rescue, Jerry Gurley, done with his treatment program, went home to Illinois to live with his mom.
And I've let a lot of people down in my life, you know. And with my dad dying, well, a year and a half ago, I wasn't there to be so-called the man of the house. I didn't lend a shoulder for her to lean on because I was caught up in my own drug addiction and things like that. So, you know, that's what I meant, you know, now that I've finally got my act together and that I'm thinking clearly that I could do something like that and then make her proud.
What?
You think so?
Hearing about the rescue, watching the news report, Jerry's mom, his girlfriend, and his family are proud. But to them, that's not the most important thing.
When I saw the tape, it was probably the first time I realized that maybe he was on his way to a real recovery. That's the Jerry that I met, you know, that's the person that I met and fell in love with.
But the story doesn't end here. When the excitement of the rescue had worn off and the reality of coping with his addiction away from the support he'd gotten in Minnesota had set in, Jerry Gurley got depressed and lonely, and that's a dangerous place to be when you're in recovery. But on the day he felt his lowest, Jerry Gurley got a gift. Call it a return favor from the family of the man he'd helped save.
Dear Mr. Gurley, my family and I can't thank you enough for helping save my husband's life last Monday. You did more than a good thing. You made it possible for my baby, Kyle, to get to know his father with God's continued blessing.
The letters just really picked up my day. It made me feel like I was a person. The substance that I used, it took over my soul, and I wasn't Jerry. And it's nice because I can read those letters now and say, yeah, this is what Jerry's about, you know, about being a nice guy. So
I would certainly hope that he knows how much we appreciate what he's done.
And helping that guy, I don't know, I can't make amends to my father. I can't say I'm sorry and things like that. But, you know, this is one way, in a certain way to me, that it helps make amends to him. It's a good start for me.
Jerry Gurley learned in treatment that everybody has a purpose. He believes he's found that purpose. And in a way, you might say the life Jerry Gurley saved on an icy highway that morning was his own. For Dimension, I'm Trish Van Pilsen.
The young father rescued from the burning car, David Nelson, works for West Publishing in Eagan. West was so grateful and impressed by the rescue efforts of the 6 people that they will each receive a special award at a company ceremony May 24th.